Good morning, Scott.
Good morning, Eli.
So, staff is good with your motion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the only option that I have in front of me, so they've been working with me on it, so that's where we're at.
Good morning, Councillor Kitts, Madam Vice Chair.
Good morning.
Just a fun little bit. The first 7 digits of this Zoom meeting are a Richmond phone number. So how about that?
Oh, wow.
About that. It'd be cooler if it was your phone number, but I guess you wouldn't want to publicly share that either.
No, I probably wouldn't tell it. I did share my number once. It's available on YouTube halfway through a solid waste master plan technical briefing. So if you're interested, it's there. It's out there, open to the world.
Didn't you share your phone number once on Twitter, Scott, several years ago? How did that? Am I remembering that?
On Twitter, I don't think I shared it on Twitter.
Okay.
That's okay. We still have a landline as old people in CARP, and it's in a phone book. Anybody can just go, and presumably they're not like George Darrouz. They know how to spell Al-Shantiri, so they're fine.
He always forgets the L. It's always Councillor Shantiri. There's an L in there. It's EL apostrophe Shantiri, making it Councillor L Shantiri.
Can you explain to him this is the clans of the Al-Shantiri? If you take the L, that means you took half my people out.
George,
Actually,
listen to him.
Dash, not an apostrophe.
There you go.
I'm sorry. Did I say apostrophe?
Yeah.
Dash is right.
How ridiculous of me.
I'm thinking of getting a landline. I was telling Scott the other day, actually, because my house, if anyone's called me, they know it's a dead zone for calls. I'm always calling people back, standing outside.
and the landline, honestly, it helps a lot if, God forbid, if you need an emergency, because sometimes the cell tower takes you to different, especially where we are, it goes to Quebec. It doesn't go to Ottawa. So Quebec would pick up the call and then they transfer it to, so you waste some times in between. So.
Yeah, that happens in Cumberland Village as well.
Yeah.
Someone that works at the city once saw me at the end of my laneway holding my phone out like this, but I was actually on a Zoom call, so that's why I was like the camera. But they thought I was out trying to get a signal, so they made a tinfoil hat for me to toss on my head for a better signal in my laneway. I'm sure that's why they made the tinfoil hat for me. I don't think there's any other reason.
Okay, based on that note, it is 10 o'clock or a little past 10 o'clock. Good morning, colleagues and staff on the call. I'd like to call our meeting to order for Thursday, May 5th, 2022. Here's the chair's statement, public hearing for OP and zoning item. This is a public meeting to consider the proposed comprehensive official plan and zoning bylaw amendments listed as item 1 to 3 on today's agenda. For the item just mentioned, only those who make oral submission today or written submission before the amendments are adopted may appeal the matter to the Ontario Land Tribunal. In addition, the applicant may appeal the matter to the Ontario Land Tribunal if council does not adopt an amendment within 90 days of recipient of the application for zoning and 120 days for an official plan amendment. To submit written comment on these amendments prior to their consideration by City Council on May 11, please email or call the committee or council coordinator. Note to committee members, Councillor, a reminder, if you have any motion on any of the item listed today, please send a copy to us ahead of the public delegation so the committee member and staff have an opportunity to review and necessarily clarify your motion during the discussion of the matter. Thank you. So we'll go through our consent agenda, but before we do we need to do roll call? I believe everyone is here, but I'll do roll call. Councillor Gower?
Here.
Councillor Darrouz?
I think I'm here.
Councillor Moffat?
Here.
Councillor Meehan,
I know I'm here.
Madam Vice Chair, Kit,
Here.
and myself. So a declaration of interest. None. Confirmation of minutes, minutes 30 minutes of April 7, 2022 of the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee. Is the minutes confirmed?
Confirmed.
Thank you. Thank you. Planning, infrastructure, and economic development. So we'll go through the consent agenda, and any item member wish to hold, let me know. Zoning bylaw amendment 4747 and 4785, Highway 17. Report recommendation 1, that Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend council approve an amendment to zoning bylaw 2008-250 for 4785, 4747 Highway 17 to prohibit residential development on the retaining farmland as detailed in document 2. Document 2 or item 2, that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee approve the consultation details section of this report be included as a part of the brief explanation in summary or of written and oral public submission. So this is just a surplus 7. So there's no presentation, no delegation, no submission on this item. Is the item carried?
Carried.
Thank you. Item number 2, zoning bylaw amendment 4639 Donley Drive in Rideau, Goulburn. A report recommendation. Item number 1, that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend council approve an amendment to zoning bylaw 2008-250 for part of 4639 Donley Drive for a holding provision on the retaining land until a risk assessment report as a slope stability report are complete, as detailed in document 2. And document 2, that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee approve the consultation details section of this report be included as part of the brief explanation in summary or of written and oral public submission to be prepared by the office of the city clerk. So there's no presentation, no delegation, and no submission on this item. Is the item carried? It's another surplus.
Okay.
It's a bit different. It's not a surplus. It's a severance of a home from a solar farm, solar panel.
And we have a whole provision on that's right. So item number 3, zoning bylaw amendment 4240 Cambrine Road, West, Rideau, Goulburn. The report recommendation, item number 1, that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend council approve an amendment to zoning bylaw 2008-250 for 4240 Cambrine Road West to prohibit residential development and restrict sensitive land uses on the several land as detailed in document 2. Item number 2, that Agriculture Rural Affairs Committee approve the consultation details section of this report be included as a part of the brief explanation in the summary of written and oral public submission to be prepared by the office of the city clerk and submitted to council. So also there's item 3, that the Agriculture Rural Affairs Committee recommend council waive the requirement for cash in lieu of park land dedication as specific in bylaw number 2009-95 for consent application D08-0121/B00217. So there's no presentation and no submission, but we have the applicant or someone on behalf of the applicant, Barrett Wager from Santac and James McRae. So if the committee agree, so I believe that two gentlemen don't need to speak. So on the item, is it carried? Or we have any question?
No questions, carried.
And to the applicant, you're okay, we carry this item, you don't need to speak. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes. Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. No questions or comments.
Okay, thank you very much, folks. Item number 4 is all-terrain vehicle, off-road vehicle, and snowmobile bylaw 2019-421 amendment. This is most likely is a housekeeping item. Report recommendation that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend council approve the amendment to the all-terrain vehicle, off-road vehicle, and snowmobile bylaw number 2019-421 as detailed in document 1 and document 2. So we have no presentation and no delegation, no submission on this item, and this is prepared by staff. Is the item carried?
Carried.
Thank you. Thank you. Item number 5 is a fuel tank home heating oil incentive program. And that's for Rito Goburn, Osgood, and West Carlton March. Report recommendation that the Agriculture Rural Affairs Committee recommend that council, 1, approve the fuel tank home heating oil incentive program as described in this report to support the objective of eliminating threats to the drinking water source. 2, delegate the authority to the General Manager of Infrastructure and Water Services or designate to implement the program as outlined in this report to execute all agreements associated with this program. Item number 3, direct staff to report back to committee and council by early 2025 on the result of the program. Approve the request for an additional $53,000 to support the fuel tank home heating oil incentive program funded from 906087 2018 water main improvements. 5, direct staff to amend the eligibility requirement for the Better Home Ottawa loan program so that the minimum loan amount is decreased to $5,000 for only the 12 home referenced in the fuel tank incentive program report. All other eligibility requirements will remain the same. So we have no presentation, no delegation, and no correspondent on this item, but we do have staff on hand if a member have any question to our staff about this program. I think Councillor Moffitt and I, we remember this goes back in the days of the safe water sources where for the communal water system in some of the villages like Richmond and Carp and maybe other as well. So we have Councillor Moffitt, do you have a question on this?
Just to thank you. I know it's been a lot of work on this, dealing with residents and whatnot to get to the point where we can move beyond these risks in these communities to our communal well systems. So I just want to thank Tessa Diorio because I know that we've been working on this closely, and I know Jen Nielsen's here as well. But it's a good resolution, and it allows us to move forward. I know Councillor DeRuz and Councillor Osturi, as the chair mentioned, have been working on this and consulted on this too. But just it hasn't been the easiest process to deal with these last few remaining homeowners, but I think this is going to go a long way to help us get there. So I just want to recognize Tessa and the work that she's done on this. It's much appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Moffitt, and thank you, Tessa and Jen, for being available to meet with us and more detail about this item. So can we carry this item? Is the item carried? Thank you very much. Thank you. So we do have a motion moved by Councillor Moffitt, and it needs to that the following motion be added to the agenda pursuant to subsection 89(3) subsection 3 of the procedure bylaw in order that staff may report back to council through the June 30, 2022 meeting of Agriculture Rural Affairs Committee. So we need to waive the rules to receive this motion and I'll turn it over to, can we waive the rule first? Do you have
Yeah,
it?
yeah, carry it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'll turn it over to Councillor Moffat to read the motion. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. So this is an incredibly hyper-local issue to just one property. So I'll just read to get the information out there. So whereas the lands municipally known as 6199 Dwyer Hill Road consists of a vacant severed lot that was granted by the Land Division Committee on February 24th, 1999. And whereas in February 1999, the former Land Division Committee included as a condition of severance the imposition of a noise warning clause, ostensibly to address any potential impact of mineral resource lands development in proximity to the retirement lot. And whereas relief from comprehensive zoning bylaw 2008-250 is now required to allow for the construction of a single residence on the lot because lands are within 210 meters of lands zoned ME1. And therefore be it resolved that Agricultural Rural Affairs Committee direct staff to bring forward a report by July 2022 to council through this committee to provide an exception to the zoning bylaw 2008-250 as amended and allow for the construction of a single residence at 6199 Dwyer Hill Road in keeping with the 1999 decision by the former Land Division Committee. So it's one of these situations where through no fault of their own, the property owner lost the ability to build a home on a property that was legally severed by the township, but there was some, there was the regional designations of the lands. The city then came on later on and zoned the lands across the road to be mineral extraction. We know, people close know, that this land's never going to be used for mineral extraction based on its proximity to market, the size of the lot, other considerations, floodplain and significant wetlands. But nonetheless, we have this predicament where the owner can't proceed. So this will address that and allow them to to restore their ability to build a home on this land. So that's all this is, and staff have agreed that we tried to find every option not to come to committee for something like this, but this was sort of the last option. So staff are aware and will bring forward a report, I believe likely at the June 30th meeting of this committee to go to council in July.
Thank you, Councillor Moffat. And I know we have legal on. Is this will go to council, Ms. Inta, or just come back to this committee? Does it still have to go to council after come back to this committee?
Mr. Chair, this is a full zoning bylaw amendment, so it will have to rise to council.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Inta. Do we have any question for Councillor Moffat or for staff? I see Don Herwire is on the call as well, or legal? Okay, so on the item, Karen. Thank you very much. Thank you, folks. So we have no in-camera items, but we do have two people sign up for open mic session. Mr. Ken Holm and Megan Ann Gordon. I'm not sure if they both sign up to speak or just 5 minutes. But are they both registered to speak, Kelly? Together, okay. All right. So I think I see Megan Ann. I don't see Ken Holm. Mr. Holm, are you on the call?
Yes, I'm on the call, but I've suppressed the video because we've got the normal rural bandwidth challenge.
We can contest to that. So are you speaking, or Megan's going to speak, Mr. Holm?
Yeah, I will do the speaking, and Megan is here for support of all sorts.
Okay, so you have 5 minutes, Mr. Holm, to address the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councillors, this morning I'm going to brief you on the results of our survey on the need for improved transportation options in rural Ottawa. Next slide, please. Our Rural Transportation Solutions Group was formed about a year ago, and it builds on the experience gained during the CARP transportation study. Brings together the efforts of residents, community leaders, advocates, and groups with similar interests. Next slide. Among our group is representation from the 4 community resource centers. Today's presentation will only highlight our findings. A full report on the results will be made public soon. Participation has been good from across all 4 rural areas. All age groups have been engaged. And to oversimplify the results of our survey, residents are saying that any solution must be based on reliable and affordable solutions. Solutions must cater to the wide range of needs with appropriate attention to seniors, youth, and those who are disadvantaged. And for many solutions, making connection with the existing OC Transpo system is preferred. Feedback that will strongly influence any final recommendations includes that there are very different needs between the rush hour transportation to a place of work, contrasted with the needs of those seeking to travel throughout the day. And slightly more than a half acknowledge the need for some taxpayer funding. Next slide, please. Less than 10% of our respondents use OC Transpo regularly. And note the extent of walking and cycling. It's important to note that for the ongoing work of the active transportation component of the Transportation Master Plan. Next slide, please. There was almost equal reporting of trips for shopping and household errands compared with getting to the usual place of work. Next slide, please. A high percentage of travel is to or within the nearest village or to an adjacent village. This observation is quite consistent with the results reported in the 2011 Origin Destination Study. Next slide, please. Reliability concerns are likely influenced by bad press of both the LRT and OC Transpo itself. Discussions of the affordability aspect point to the need for more information on the costing of alternatives. Next slide, please. There's a common recognition that we do not need a standalone solution, but we need to efficiently connect to the urban-based OC Transpo system. On-demand solutions include the range of taxis, ride-sharing, minibuses, and vans. Next slide, please. Responses reflect 2 different groups. One group is those that accept that automobile travel is a fact of life in the rural area, and they have the means to rely upon the automobile. Contrast that with the second group, which are those who have the need for public transportation and see the value in it. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. A common comment is that the respondent knew of the rural transportation shortfall and accepted it as a fact of life. But what of Ottawa's official plan, Big Move number 2, which aims to have the majority of Ottawa use sustainable transportation and to get away from dependence on the private automobile? Concern about active transportation alternatives are frequent, particularly as the average rating for safety is only 3 out of 10. And the publicity about the unreliability of OC Transpo and LRT seriously detracts from the general recognition that a solution should be based on delivering rural residents to the OC Transpo system. Next slide, please.
Just a sec. You just they jumped ahead. So Canada accidentally said next slide twice. So you skipped the slide he was actually talking about. That's the slide he's on right now. The next steps one.
There we go. Thank you. We'll be sharing our final report on this survey with councillors and city staff. We'll be engaging with the Transportation Master Plan staff and their ongoing work. And we'll be participating we'll be working to increase the participation of youth and young adults when identifying the transportation needs. We plan to conduct an additional survey with emphasis on the origin destination patterns and on affordability. And finally, we'll continue to work to developing a feasible plan that can meet the rural transportation needs. That concludes my presentations. Next slide, please. And we hope that you as rural councillors will continue to support our work to develop some rural transportation solution. At this stage, your efforts to help us communicate our ongoing work to rural residents will be most invaluable. Are there any questions?
Well, we do, but before we go to question to you, Ken, maybe we'll ask Megan if she'd like to add more to what you just said. Megan?
Nope, Ken is the community champion here and he is the expert, so I will just defer to him.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Ken, we have Councillor Darouz has his hands up for question. And I'd like to recognize my colleague, Ralston King, also joined us this morning. He must think this committee rocks. That's why he joined us this morning. Thank you, Councillor King. Go ahead, Councillor Darouz, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to you. Thank you, Ken, for the presentation, and thank you, Megan, both of you for being here this morning. Ken, a quick question. I know that this presentation has kind of become public, but can you please give me a little bit who is a stakeholder in the rural area you work with, and maybe we can have a list of the group that you did the consultation with them, or if not, maybe we can also see if we can add to that presentation, because we do have a group in my ward working on active transportation through rural Ross, and also with NROC, and also with Osgood Youth Association. I just want to make sure we're not kind of doubling the work. So if that's possible, I really appreciate that.
Okay, if I could give you a partial list of those groups that are working together with us. Certainly NROC, the Nepean Rideau Osgood Community Resource Center, the Western Ottawa Community Resource Center, South Nepean Satellite Community Health Center, the Eastern Ottawa Resource Center, Orleans Cumberland Community Resource Center, the Youth of Manotick Association, Manotick Community Village Association, and other community champions. But we'll try to put a complete list up on the website so you can see the groups that are cooperating with this initiative. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you. That answers my question. I really appreciate it. I'm happy to see some of these groups. I work with them closely also. Thank you, and thank the effort. I'm looking forward to see how we can work with you to be able to achieve those goals. So thank you very much, Ken and Megan. Thanks, Councillor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Darouz. Councillor Moffat.
Thanks, Ken. Just a quick comment. So we've had an interesting experience in our area, and specifically Rideau Township side of things, where there was a Oast Transpo route that ran through Cars in North Gore, Carl Goff Yacht Club. It was used by a handful of folks, and unfortunately, residents got so frustrated with paying for empty buses through their community that they successfully lobbied to cancel the route. That happened around 2009. And that's a challenge that exists today, is funding rural transportation through the transit levy, but not having the broad support of everyone to pay for it. In your presentation, you had 44% of respondents said they wanted an increase in OC Transpo service, but 45% of respondents said they don't want to pay for it. How do you square that?
Excellent question. We haven't squared that one yet. And one of the problems that we're realizing or encountering, and we discussed it during the webinars, that there's not a high level of awareness out there as to how much it would actually cost the rural taxpayer to join the system. We're going to be emphasizing that more as an education effort in the conduct of the next one of the challenges. There's an underestimation also as to what it actually costs to use the private automobile. A very, very serious underestimation. So a fair comparison of alternatives is difficult for people to make. And again, that's part of the education program that we're going to be including with the third survey, making residents much more aware of the costs of the range of options, and compare that with the known costs of running an automobile. So no question, that's one of the fundamental challenges. We're encouraged to see the high percentage that are supportive of using the OC Transpo system. And we're also pleasantly surprised by the percentage of people who recognize that there's a need to have the average taxpayer contribute to the solution. So I'm encouraged by the positive indications in both those areas that we're getting back from the residents.
Yeah, it's an important conversation because you have a situation where, I mean, with our 3 transit areas, urban transit area, rural transit area A, and the rural transit area B. For instance, I live in North Core. I don't pay for transit. You know, I get residents that reach out to me and complain about paying for LRT, and I just respond that, well, you don't. So
yeah,
it's as simple as that. But when the other areas that you pay for what you get, right? So residents in Richmond pay far less than residents in Stittsville, but they get far less service. So in order for them to get increased service, the tax rate in that entire rural transit area A has to go up altogether in order for that increase in service. And then if you wanted to get to the urban level, now you're talking about bringing that entire area into the urban transit area, which is a significant increase in taxes. So, and it's not just the users, of course, it's everyone that pays. And it's that constant battle that we've had in Manotick. I think when LRT, Councillor Meehan's here, Side South, that's now 5 minutes from the doorstep of Manotick residents. That's a big game changer for residents in that area. But that rural transit area A wraps all around from Navan over through north of Greeley, down through Manotick, over to Richmond, and then all the way up around inside Dwyer Hill Road up to Carp as well. So it's a big area, and they all contribute through that transit area A, and any changes to that impacts all of them. So it's a big conversation to have, and it's a tough one. I mean, most residents in Osgood Ward don't pay for transit, and they're going to be they too are going to be at the doorstep of a major transit station on Beauceville Road. So it's an interesting conversation. It's one that has to happen. I think it might happen alongside this whole concept of fare-free transit. That's likely coming next term. But it's going to be an impactful one. But it's good that you're starting this discussion in the rural area and engaging with people now, rather than catching them flat-footed a year or two from now. So appreciate that effort.
Yeah, there's no question that there is not a great appetite for the rural area to join the full-blown urban transit area, and no need, because we don't expect that there will be that sort of a service. But certainly there are advantages to the urban transit area A, and if we're looking at the big picture, and if we pay attention to promises that are going to be coming out over the next month, one of the parties is proposing basically a major revision of the need to provide public transportation to all of the municipalities area, not specific zones. So that'll prompt some interesting discussions over the next year, and also that Buck a Ride proposal will again encourage discussion. So we're going to take advantage of those focuses by adding more information to the website to help improve the education, so residents really understand the reality of the option and the realistic costs of the choices. So thank you for your question.
Thank you, Mr. Holm. And our next is Councillor King. Councillor King, welcome to the committee, and go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And I just had just a few comments, and I'd really like to thank both Ken and Megan for the work that they've done and for the survey work that they're undertaking. And just wanted to make a small comment in terms of the fact that despite the fact that we do have rural transit zones and urban transit zones, we do have one integrated transit system. So just wanted to make the request that you share that report. I'm sure you will with not just the rural councillors, but also the urban and suburban councillors. We're obviously interested. I have a personal interest just from history. Many of my colleagues might not realize this, but many moons ago, I did live in Ashton for a good number of years. And, you know, I actually experimented with driving into park and rides when we could to leverage transit. And obviously, it would be very important for us to see the expansion of transit options for residents in rural areas. So I actually appreciate, as an urban councillor, I appreciate the work that you're doing, and definitely want to be informed as to the residents' sentiments. So my only request, Mr. Chair, is that rich information is shared with all of council. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Councillor King. I don't think there was a question, Ken, but I think I saw Megan on the camera shaking her head. She will share that, or we will share that report with all our colleagues. So there's no issue there.
Absolutely. We recognize the need in the early stages to keep the rural councillors in particular informed of our initiative, but it's important very soon to get out to all the councillors, not only to inform them, but also to encourage their support. So that will be part of our communication plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holm. Madam Vice Chair.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just wanted to say thanks very much for the presentation, very valuable information, and my colleagues have already made some great comments. I apologize if this was covered in the presentation. It was cutting out a little bit on my end, but I would be interested, it might already be included in the report, but I know that we were promoting participation in our communities, and I'd be interested to see if you have that information, sort of who participated in your workshops, so that we can also sort of identify if there were gaps. You know, if you didn't have anyone from the Navan area, for example, then we can do some proactive outreach in those areas on our part as well. So just a comment.
It's because no one said they wanted to
yes,
go to the East End, so Catherine just assumes no one got asked from the East End. But
I
no,
know
it's just the reality is that nobody wants to go to the East End.
I know there were people in my area that participated, but sorry, go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, we do. There is a slide about 3 or 4 down in the pack, but to avoid the confusion, I'll just say that we do have representation from across all 4 of the rural areas, some better than others, and we're working on making sure that we have representation to improve the participation. The overall participation in the 2 surveys that we did has been extremely high. We have had more than 1,220 participants in the survey, and councillors know how difficult it is to get feedback and input from residents at the best of times. So getting 1,200 responses certainly reinforces that there is a great interest out there. The website that we have not done a lot of promotion for it, but we are approaching 10,000 unique visitors to that website in less than a year. So again, that's some significant indication of the interest in providing rural transportation solutions for Ottawa. Thank you for your question.
Yeah, no, that's great. Kudos again to you for this great work. Thank you.
Councillor Kitts, if I could actually just add and build on what Ken was saying, we do have great representation. Where we are lacking representation, I would say, is in our youth respondents, because where we do hear from youth, we are hearing there is a great need there, and it is harder for us to reach youth. So any ways in with the different youth groups would be certainly welcome to this group. Thank you.
Okay, no, that's great feedback, and maybe we can chat offline about how to engage those groups. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Councillor Gower.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the presentation. Was there any specific questions asked or feedback received around paratranspo service in the rural area?
No, not specifically. Good question. I know that area is being looked at by the Council on Aging Rural Transportation Working Group. It is of concern, particularly the cost of a rural paratranspo. The councillors are aware that there's an arrangement between the City of Ottawa, the center, they provide the paratranspo service for clients traveling within the rural area. Not between the rural area, and similar to what it would cost to go the rural area to the urban area. And that unfortunately is about 3 times what a urban resident pays for paratranspo. So regardless of the distance, as soon as a rural paratranspo client gets on the means of conveyance, it's going to cost them 3 times as much as it would if they were a downtown resident. So there's something unfair about that current system, and several groups are looking at that separately. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that. I think traditionally in the city, we've tended to think of paratranspo and traditional bus service as very distinct services, and we are trying to shift that thinking that paratranspo and OC Transpo are very much integrated services. So I think it's important to keep that in mind when we're talking about any area of the city and how to improve access to transit. Thanks for the presentation today.
Certainly also that boundary, that dividing line changes as more and more of the public transit system becomes increasingly accessible. So it's a good question, good point. Thank you.
Okay, any other question from my colleagues? I don't see any more hands. I just want to say thank you, Megan. Thank you, Mr. Holm. And if we can build a little bit on what Councillor Moffat talked about. A few years ago, we brought OC Transpo, we brought the transit from Belleville and Innisfil, and we brought to the community. We had a comparison, we had reports, and we had a survey. Unfortunately, the survey, it was not sophisticated as the one you folks have, Ken and Megan. It was asking people if they would like to have transit in their community, and people from Vancouver, they were answering, yes, we do. So we can tell, just like I always made the comment when I had the store, parents ask kids, would you like ice cream? I never heard a kid say, no, I don't want ice cream. They all want ice cream, but who's going to pay for it is the big question. So and last 2 weeks, we were contacted by Ann Pryor, the town of Ann Pryor, which is 12,000 people west of Ottawa, and they were asking if OC Transpo would be able to expand their services, and they find out OC Transpo would probably be the most expensive option from any other option. So it's a great discussion. It's obviously getting people interested talking about public transit. I'd really like to echo what Councillor King said. We benefit a great deal in our community from the park and ride, especially the one on Terry Fox Drive or Eagleson Road, and it's going to be another park and ride with the new development on in South March area. So I'm glad we have that discussion, but I want to say heartfelt thank you, Ken and Megan, for your hard work on this. I know my staff usually join some of your meeting, and we're always kept informed, but I want to thank you for your effort and your presentation today. Thank you, folks. With that, colleagues, we have no notice of motions for consideration at subsequent meeting. We have none today. We have no inquiries, no other business. Next meeting is June 2nd or it says 2nd, but I thought it was 30. We'll let you know. I believe June 2nd is going to be the next meeting. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, folks, and have a great day. Now we see Ken on the camera after the meeting.
Thanks,
We
Chair.
have 2 ERIC meetings in June, so that's why it's confusing.
Yeah, it's true. One on the 2nd, one on the 3rd, and the 30th. You're right.